In this episode of Music Recollections, co-hosts James and Brian introduce their guest Jim McKinney, who delves into his memorable musical experiences. Jim reflects on his first concert, Van Halen's 1984 tour in Florida, and shares how the music of that era left a lasting impression on him. He discusses his evolving musical tastes, fondly recalling artists like Billy Joel, Elton John, and Queen. Jim also recounts unforgettable concerts, including Paul McCartney in 1992 and the Outfield. The episode highlights how music serves as a soundtrack to significant life events and the importance of live concerts in perpetuating that connection. Let's get an overview of the podcast.
Welcome to Music Recollections, the podcast where music fans share the soundtrack of their lives. From unforgettable first concerts to great albums and memorable songs, we dive into the moments, memories, and magic that only music can create.
Now that we've set the stage for what Music Recollections is all about, let's jump right into introductions. I'm your co-host, James.
Well, hey, and I'm Brian, and we're very excited about our guest today, and thank you everyone for joining us. This is a new friend of mine that I met a few months ago. We've had lunch a few times and have a mutual friend, and he's a great guy. He lives in Atlanta. He's a mortgage broker, and we have a lot in common. His name's Jim McKinney. How are you tonight, Jim?
Doing great. How are you, Brian?
Good, excellent. Well, we appreciate you being on here. I know you talked a lot about some cool concert experiences. Tell us about your first concert experience.
Yeah, I'd love to. It was January 1984, and it was my first year out of high school, so I was in junior college. And I remember the event well. It was the opening, I think it was the opening date for the Van Halen 1984 tour in Hollywood, Florida at the Hollywood Sportatorium. So just some guys from I was at the time playing baseball, some guys from the baseball team got tickets. It was right before our season had started. I think it was mid to late January. And yeah, that was, that was back in the day when they had the, 30,000 seat arena, huge concert venues. So it was all the techno pyro experience with the fire and the everything that came with it. It was pretty memorable or amazing, however you want to look at it. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that brings goosebumps to me because that was my very first album, Van Halen 1984 and Journey Escape at the same time. And I'm thinking about that video, that Jump video, and they were really on fire back then. That was probably when they were really in their prime. So do you remember any details of the show, any songs that stood out?
Well, one of the things that stood out is I guess they tried to recreate the stage very, very similar to how they did their videos. I remember there were little stages set up where David Lee Roth literally would jump from the little platform onto the stage, and just things we don't even think about. I think when he was coming onto the stage or when the band was coming on, they're literally being lifted down by almost like an elevator on a platform. And it's probably 8 to 10 stories high. It's way up in the air. So, and they're playing while they're doing it. So it was a pretty amazing experience. So.
Yeah, that's super cool. I know James is a big fan too. And we just saw Hagar last summer, which was amazing.
Yeah, and I have seen them since then with Sammy Hagar. And I remember in early 2000s, they reunited with David Lee Roth. I think it was around 2003 or 2004, and they were here in Atlanta. I saw them at that time here. So,
I really miss those shows where they had like you said, the pyrotechnics and the theatrics, and of course, David Lee Roth is probably like the greatest front man or one of the greatest of a rock band, just because he really just captured everyone's attention, and with those spandex pants and just all the different crazy colors and things that he would wear, and just his kicks alone, I don't know how he did that, like show after show. It's just amazing how flexible that dude was. pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
it was a lot to take in. I guess I was 19 at the time, and just things you don't even think about. It's literally like almost going to a Miami Dolphin football game. There were that many people. You know, you're hanging out in the parking lot before the event, and I want to say there was at least 30,000 people there. And you know, it's kind of builds up to a crescendo because you're literally outside on a gravel parking lot, and you can hear them inside warming up for the concert. And I believe on that concert as well, I'm not sure if they even had they may have had one warm up band. I don't really remember that. So
I'm going to ask about your musical evolution. Um, I know Brian and I have talked about how our music tastes have changed throughout the years. So, has your musical taste
I
changed?
was learned to appreciate some of the artists. You're more when you're younger, you're thinking about more the sound, or you might get into pop or rock. And then as you get older, sometimes you just appreciate somebody's musical ability, so to speak. Or, for instance, I've grown to really appreciate guys like Billy Joel and Elton John, even Queen. If you look at the range of Queen's music and how they evolved, to me, that's really impressive. I've also learned to appreciate how good a singer's. I don't know if we pay attention to how good somebody actually sings these days compared to years ago. And I remember what was weird is I always liked Linda Ronstadt. And then when I got later on in college, all of my roommates, we all loved Linda Ronstadt. And this is way past her prime because she had such an incredible voice.
That's one thing too. I think that's a little lost sometimes today. I think anyone can almost record now, whereas before all this tech arrived with like auto tune and things like that, and all these things that you can do in the recording studio, you really had to have some significant talent. Not that modern artists don't have talent, but yeah, I just think it really probably separates, those artists
Right.
in the past from today.
And I look back at some of the ranges of some of the singers and their range of voice. And just recently, I don't know, I listened to a lot of music I grew up with today, music from the 70s and 80s, and listening to old groups like Blondie. And I'm like, I never really thought that much about Blondie. I remember they had a couple albums when we were younger, but her voice and range is unbelievable because, yeah, I listened to her music on Amazon, and there's just a whole bunch of songs I never had heard before, and I just really grew to appreciate. Like, wow, she's really got an incredible voice, so incredible range. So
Yeah,
Yeah, I totally
Blondie.
agree. Even
Yeah.
like Cyndi Lauper, James.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, wow, yeah, Cyndi Lauper as well. And it was kind of interesting is when later on in college, I'm living with three or four guys at a time, and these almost like dorms or apartments, and we all appreciated singers like or musicians or artists like Cyndi Lauper because of her voice. So we all appreciated Linda Ronstadt, and then also, and that's where I learned to appreciate more. Just with some of my roommates at the time were really big. One of them really loved Elton John, and I wasn't a huge Elton John fan. But then if you listen to him, especially some of his music in the 70s, I just really grew to appreciate him. And then the same thing, they were really big on Bruce Springsteen. And I was more going into, at that time, I listened to more top 40 type artists. And Bruce Springsteen definitely wasn't that. So that was one of the first times I actually listened to a lot of his older music and really learned to appreciate him. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm thinking of someone like even like Roy Orbison that had all those different octaves he could sing in. But yeah, totally agree with you that you like you mentioned, James, well, both of you did. Now with The Voice and these shows, American Idol, it seems like there's a lot of these sort of one-hit wonders, but
Yeah.
those really core, hardcore singers, like you mentioned, Linda Ronstadt. I want to say she wrote one of my favorite songs, "Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me," it was covered by Warren Zevon. He made it sort of a hit, but yeah, you just don't have that raw energy where they're on that tour bus and struggling for so many years and finally make it. So yeah, totally agree with you. And what about switching gears a little bit? What's the best concert you've ever seen?
Well, I've actually got two. So I had a feeling this question was coming. Without a doubt, the best concert, and probably nobody even talks about it anymore. And I think it was at the time the very first concert in the Georgia Dome. It had just opened, and an attorney friend of mine got tickets, and nobody really wanted to go. I went with her, and it was Paul McCartney in I guess Lender and Wings, but it was in 1992, and it was the first time he had bought the Beatles songs back, and they did a lot of Beatles songs, including Hey Jude, and we were right on the floor, so that was incredible. So absolutely incredible.
No, that's cool because my brother was at that show. I want to say that was the very first concert at the Dome.
Yes, I think it was. And
Yeah,
it
he
was.
mentioned that. I remember he went and he was amazing. He loves the Beatles. My nephew's name is Julian, named after Julian Lennon, of course, but he said that was amazing.
In my other experience, which is a kind of a wild one, when I was in college, I went to the University of Florida, and they used to make a big thing at homecoming. And the second year I'm at Florida, they booked a terrible homecoming show because the year before it was too dirty. So the alumni got all upset. So the students revolted, and they booked a band to play at the SAE house, inside the SAE house in their courtyard. And they had just come out with an album, and nobody had ever heard of this group. And I had friends that were in SAE, and the group was the Outfield. And they had just come out with that album. I think it was this would have been probably 84, 85. And that was absolutely unbelievable to have the Outfield do that. I think it was Go Deep or Play Deep was the name of the album. I mean, you've probably heard just about every song on that album, but yeah, that was absolutely incredible. So,
Wow, that's amazing. So I'm curious, Jim, what was the concert the University of Florida had before that was labeled as too
no, it was
dirty?
so they used to have comics come in, and the
Ah,
year before they had Robin Williams, and it was the same uh, comedy show he did like on HBO, and it was incredible.
yeah.
But for a lot of the alumni, it was just too dirty. So the next year, they're like, we're going to pick the alumni. It's like, we're going to pick the comedy show. And they went from Robin Williams one year to the Smothers Brothers the
Oh
next
my
year.
gosh.
So a bunch of the fraternities all pulled their money, and we got the Outfield to play on Fraternity Row. And at the big party, it was called the Gator Groan. The homecoming at Florida is called the Gator Growl. So that one year, everybody boycotted it. We called it the Gator Groan and had a giant party on Fraternity Row.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So are you a big Tom Petty fan, Jim, since you
Um,
have those Gainesville roots?
Well, the funny thing is, I've been to the bar that he's first started playing in. It's called Dubs, and yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a huge Tom Petty. That's one of my regrets. I've never seen Tom Petty live. Um, we always look at. I remember, I think it was the late '80s. I had moved back to Fort Lauderdale, and a friend of mine had tickets, and I could have gone, and I don't know, maybe I had to work, or it might have been during the week, but I didn't go, and I do regret that. But yeah, I would say he's another artist I've through the years just really grown to appreciate, just because he's very talented. So
I agree. I love Tom Petty. So, do you have a favorite album, Jim?
yeah, without a doubt. So I relate things sometimes in my life to music. So right when I was coming out of high school and going into junior college and college, and really you're kind of growing up. You feel you're trying to, exert your independence, so to speak. But it was the War by U2, and
Oh,
just
yeah.
some of those. It was so different than what we were used to, and to me, just about every song on that album was just incredible. So,
Well, I know B can talk a lot about U2 and his love for that band, and I definitely admire them as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, is that one of the best albums? I almost have to agree with you. I mean, it was just revolutionary,
Yeah.
at least for, my little ears at the time. It was pretty cool.
So I think it came out in 1983, and it would have been probably right around. I just remember it takes me back to like the spring break time of like I think it was 1983. It was late spring, early summer, and that was. I just remember New Year's Day and then Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Those were but once you got the album, just about every song on there is a really moving to me. I really enjoyed it. So I just thought it was kind of different. It's a different sound than, and that was kind of the sound that was leading the way they used to call it the second British invasion. And I really kind of got into that because I think it's just about timing. I was 18 or 19 years old at the time when all this was happening. So
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
ask if you had a favorite song, but yeah, it sounds like you said, every single song in that album is top notch. It's 10 out of 10. So I think that would be challenging to pick just one. But yeah, I mean, and that's you're talking about, just those connections that you had from the album, and that's one thing that we kind of talk about on this podcast, is that you can be listening to a song or an album and kind of it's like a little time travel. You can go back to that time where
right.
first were introduced to the song or the band, and kind of think about where you were, and all these other things. So yeah, it just makes music fun, I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. So, but
really
I mean,
does.
without a doubt, I like the whole album, but I always thought New Year's Day is to me one of the best songs. Still got one of the best, what I call riffs. And the funny thing is, you don't hear when you hear little bits and pieces of like one of the, you know, you want when they go back and say, what are some of the great riffs in rock and roll or music? You never hear that on U2, and I'm surprised. But the piano part, that's just to me, it was different, and I still love it. So
Yeah, I agree. That it brings me back to piling 8 guys in a car, going to a game or spring break, hearing like even songs like Seconds off that album was so
yeah,
cool. But the only other album guys I can think of, and I think the 3 of us have so much in common, is the Joshua Tree. Could probably go pound for pound with War, but I'm with you. I think it was really ahead of its time for sure. But I would also say REM, Murmur, and Reckoning. I know James, we both love REM.
Oh
Those
yeah.
those albums are awesome. And switching gears again, Jim, what about your the last concert you attended? You want to talk about that?
yeah. And they're getting ready they're touring again. I'll probably go see them next month. Is The last concert I saw was Styx with, and I've seen them many times, and they always bring somebody good. But they were with REO Speedwagon and Loverboy. But there was an issue with the. I think the singer for Loverboy had to be replaced during that tour. But Styx always does a great show, and I followed them all the way through high school. So, and I have an older brother, and the funny thing is, I remember, he's more 70s, but he loves Styx was huge in the 70s. And he loved them, and I guess I did too. And I still remember some of their songs from the 70s. But yeah, that was the last concert I saw. That was a great concert.
No,
No,
that's
and they were so
awesome.
good too, James. We met someone who saw them in 1977, so it's amazing the legs that some of these
Yeah.
bands have. But
Yeah.
yeah, incredible band. Come Sail Away is probably one of the best songs ever.
So they've got a few new, but Tommy Shaw joined the band in the mid 70s. But I think really, what's the guy's name? Brian, the other lead singer. He controlled the band for so long, and then he finally they split, or they kind of kicked him out in the late 90s, and Tommy Shaw kind of took over from them. And I almost feel like he feels like they didn't do enough back in the 70s and 80s. So they're literally touring every year now. And they always do it. He's one of the best looking or in the best shape for like he's got to be 70 or early 70s, but they always do a great show. So,
Yeah, and to me too, I always loved cover art for Styx for
yeah,
their albums. It was just always really, really
yeah,
cool. Always used to look forward to that.
yeah, I remember that too. So,
Yeah, what a great band. So, one of the final questions that we have is how has music changed your life?
well, uh, I would say the impact is that when you relate a cornerstone in your life to a song. So that is memorable to you, generally you're going to tie it to a song or music of some sort. And the funny thing is, I was out with some friends Friday night up in Alpharetta, and they're very good friends with it's a cover band. They do 80s music, Sunset Strip, and they're doing all these songs in the 80s, and they're like, hey, so what were you doing when this song came out? What year was this? So we were tying it back to what year we were in high school and what was going on at the time. So I think that's probably the biggest impact as far as in my life. It just kind of brings you back to all the memorable events that you've had. And generally, whatever memorable event you had going on, you're going to tie it to a certain song.
I love that. So how do you listen to your music now? I mean, do you have any albums or CDs
I
or
still have
anything?
my CDs, but it's Spotify, Amazon Music,
Yeah.
YouTube Music. So whatever's the easiest. I really liked YouTube Music, but I also, most of my house is wired through Alexa, and it's not they don't correlate with each other because as much as well as they should. So that's why I also have Spotify and Amazon Music. So
Well,
Yeah, I
that's
wish the
great.
three of us could hang out and go to a concert. James
I
is in
Right?
yeah.
Seattle.
Yeah.
Well, Styx will be in Peachtree City on September. It's a Sunday night, September 14th, I think.
Well, and James, you're coming. Maybe we can try to see fun with Jim
So
October
Yeah.
what, 4th or
Yeah, October 4th through whatever. And yeah, I've never seen Styx before, but I've always admired their music. Like you said, Tommy Shaw is just has
so
a really
they're
unique
supposed to
voice.
be with I think they're going to bring the guy from REO Speedwagon is going to be there. I don't think it's the whole group, but just the Kevin Krogan, and I've seen them. They were really good. And then they were going to have I can't remember who the other band was supposed to be, but they said they're going to probably be bringing another band with them. So,
Cool. Yeah.
and
yeah.
I
I've
love
never
that.
been. It's an amphitheater in Peachtree City. I've never been there, so that's always
It's called
yeah,
the Fred. I've been there
yeah,
once. The Fred. They nicknamed it the Fred.
yep. That's it. So that's it.
Cool. And I know we've talked about this on a prior podcast too, that I love that a lot of these bands that we weren't able to see either, growing up and, job, school, whatever, interfered with, or money, interfered with the ability
Yeah.
to go to concerts. But it's so cool that these bands that we used to love when we were younger are still around and still touring, and we get a
Yep.
second and third chance.
So
So,
I'm really upset that I think they finished, but I never got a chance to see Queen.
oh
And
yeah,
I really wish I had seen them. I'm hoping, and I think he will. I'm hoping. Years ago, Billy Joel played at the Battery in Atlanta, which is where the Braves play now, and we couldn't get tickets, but we sat outside the stadium and listened to it. I would like to see him hopefully before he finally calls it quits. So,
Now,
yeah.
isn't Adam Lambert playing with them now? Queen?
yes, but I think Brian May, the main guitar player, he retired.
Oh,
I think
okay.
he's 80 years old now.
Wow.
Yeah, and I hear really good things about there's some kind of like a documentary on HBO about Billy Joel.
Yeah, I saw that. It's
Oh,
very, I mean, little things that we did. I didn't know he stopped writing music in 1993. So
Oh,
he stopped doing any new music, and he explains why. And I didn't realize the agony and the torture that they kind of put themselves through when he writes a song. He
Mm.
literally locks himself in a room sometimes for 2 and 3 days for just to get one song out and to make sure and go back through it. He's a perfectionist to make sure everything's done correctly. And that's just a lot to do for, I guess he was doing it for well over 20 years. So,
Yeah, it's great to see him getting some recognition for being a lyricist because
yeah,
he
exactly.
writes just
That's one of
amazing
the things
lyrics.
when I saw that, and I should
Yeah.
have known. And yeah, just incredible uh, lyrist, and again, a very wide range in how he put together the music. I mean, to think somebody's just a piano player, but all of his songs, they're complete like ensembles, and he ties everything in together. He's doing that. That's pretty incredible. So, I mean,
And you
they
have to be in shape too to play the piano and sing like that. That's
yeah.
incredible. And is it true? You always read that his accountant took a lot of his money. Is that
Yeah,
true?
he had this. Yep, and that was one of his best friends. They talk about that in that
Mm.
episode. So, and I don't know if they didn't say he ever got it back. He just sued him and basically had to try and make his money back.
Yeah, so cool. Well, thank you so much, Jim.
Okay.
Appreciate your time and kind of sharing some of the soundtrack of your life. And yeah, it sounds like really interesting and just a wide variety of music, which I love to hear. But yeah, if we're ever all in town together, yeah, we should go see a concert. I'm sure we would enjoy it.
I love it. So, okay.
Well, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, Jim, we could talk for hours about this.
Yeah.
You just brought up all those great bands. And I mean, I feel like we have so much in common and our passion for college football, though we're on different squads.
Yeah.
But still, I guess we have a passion for the SEC.
Yeah.
But like you said, it just brings back memories when you were mentioning Van Halen and James and I, when we saw that show last year with Hagar, we were like, wow, this reminds us of jumping around in our room in high school,
Yeah.
listening to Jump and 1984, all those songs off that album. So it does bring back great memories. And that's what we want to do with this podcast is just connect others. And that's with all the craziness in the world today. It's that music and sports and probably food are about the only three things that can bring people together. So we appreciate this. The name of our podcast is called Music Recollections, the soundtrack of your lives. So you can find us on YouTube at Music Recollections. And also we're on Instagram at Music Recollections. And James, do you want to close us out with our email address?
Yeah, it's just music.recollections@gmail.com. If you ever want to be a guest on our podcast, we would love to hear from you and all about your soundtrack. Please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you again, Jim. Thank you, James.
All right, take
Appreciate you
care.
having me, guys. Thank you.